G'day and welcome to Premier League Overtime, a very exciting time of year, of course. Sam Tugwell over here, and alongside me, Doug McDonald-Taylor, getting set to bring you all of the finals action that is almost near here in the competition. Of course, Doug, I'll get started with you. Welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Good to be here, and the finals are finally here, mate. We've been waiting a couple of weeks for this now, and only 10 teams left, and 8 of which are going to be playing this week, and so four big games to talk about, mate.
How good's this? We cannot wait. Round 21 has just been and gone, so we're going to quickly look at the results from that before we get stuck into the finals and looking at some of those results. It was, of course, the last game of the year for some teams. Of course, the Eastern Mavericks women, they were one of those, and they got one over the Woodville women in the end to finish their season on a high, which was nice. The Centrals men got near to the West Adelaide Bearcats at home as well, but West prevailed there, as did their women. The Sturt and Forestville game, they put up a couple of good contests there. We'll chat about them in a minute, the men's especially. But first, I guess, the North and Southern game, they locked horns, and at Hillcrest Stadium we saw one of the better games with a tale of two halves, I guess you could say, with the Rockets basically coming back with a massive surge home. The Southern Tigers had this game, looked like it was well and truly wrapped up in the first half. It was about 20 points of difference, I think. They built a really good lead. And then after that, the Rockets came running home with an incredible long run, really, throughout that third quarter. And then the last, and in fact, actually squared the scores. And in fact, I think they were ahead by a point at one stage as well. So they managed to take a lead. But at the end of the day, the Tigers just getting across the line with the last few minutes, playing some good basketball, winning by 10, 60-50. Doug, just one of those games that both teams really, really needed the win desperately.
Yeah, this was a big game for both clubs, Sam. There was a double chance up for grabs, and the winner was going to get it, and the loser was probably going to drop out of the top three, and that's exactly what happened. Southern getting a huge win, especially at Hillcrest. They would have gone in slight underdogs purely because of the location. But it was a real slog, low scoring, 60-50, keeping North Adelaide to 50 points. Tracy York will be stoked with that. I mean, that hasn't happened all year. And as you can see, I mean, Joe Hill, Sarah Ellsworthy, Mackay, Williams, all in single figures. In fact, Williams didn't even score. Opal Madia, the only one in double figures, was 16, which in the end has turned into them only scoring 50 points. So Southern just had a little bit more firepower, especially down the stretch. But with Robinson, Cunningham, and Gemma Thacker off the bench, all in double figures. Molly McKendrick actually had a bit of a quiet one for her. She only had 9 points but added 7 boards. But there was probably Gemma Thacker coming in off the bench. She's had a really good 2 or 3 weeks. She came in late in the season and she took a few weeks to find her feet, but her last 3 weeks leading the finals is good, and she's really given them a great injection off the bench, which is going to be important for finals, and was probably the difference in this game, Sam. Looking
at that, of course, like as you mentioned, 50 points only for North. They average 71 points in a game for the season. So for that to be the case, that's obviously good defence for Southern, but also something I think I brought up last week on the show while you weren't here, and I might ask you now since you are here. Just wondering if the Rockets maybe are tiring at the end of the year. They've got some younger bodies. The core group is relatively young. The last few weeks haven't quite been their strongest, though. I think they've lost to Western Southern. Now, those two teams, they're finals teams, so you expect a contest there. They've only just beaten Sturt and Woodville in there as well in their last couple of games. So in their games, they should be winning by a good margin. And now they're in an elimination final because of those sorts of results. Do you think that maybe that group is starting to tire? And, I mean, with an elimination final at home against the Eagles this week, maybe that sort of tired, form might let them down coming into these finals.
Look, it certainly hasn't been a great lead up for the Rockets going into the finals. No doubt about that, Sam. The thing is, I mean, their starters are a pretty good unit, and they generally get the job done. But they're probably not getting enough from their second wave of players. So Sophie Byrne, Courtney Hanson, Shannon Tarrant, these type of players, and even Kirsty Williams, even though she's a starter. Her output's probably not where she'd probably want, or her teammates. So they need an injection of those players. They need them to step up a little bit to help out Joe Hill, who is 43 and is coming towards an end of the season and probably is starting to tire. And Opal Madia and Sarah Ellsworthy, they've had good years, but also they're on the younger side as well. So They possibly are starting to tire, but they're coming up against and we'll talk about it later again, but Forestville also a very young group, so they're probably in the same boat. But looking at their group, you'd probably think North is probably one of the better fourth place teams you've ever seen. So it's interesting that they finished fourth. They've been in the top three all year, but their form is not great. And a couple of weeks ago when Jess Marnie was on, I thought, I mentioned to her that I thought that she was there. I thought that North were probably the number one, team to challenge Norwood this year. And it's in the last couple of weeks, you have to probably go away from that and think, obviously now the Tigers knocked them off at Hillcrest, and the form that Westies are in are probably the two bigger candidates that might take this title away from Norwood. But having said that, there's plenty of talent there. They can turn it around pretty quickly.
It's going to be very exciting, of course. That elimination final coming up on the weekend. We'll preview that in a moment. The other game that was really interesting for us and pretty much on the finals as well was the Sturt and Forestville men's match. Austral Sports was down there, some of the highlights you can see. And look, this is a game which had plenty of riding on it as well. A finals double chance up for grabs for the winner and an away elimination final if they lost. And Sturt just came out and steamrolled the Eagles pretty much, 29 points the difference at home. Leaving the Eagles in a bit of trouble now because they've got an elimination game against Woodville at St Clair, and they haven't beaten Woodville at St Clair this year. Isaac White was very, very good, 23 points, shooting at about 75%, I think, so magnificent from him. But the Eagles just not quite up to the scratch that we thought they were.
No, the Eagles will be bitterly disappointed with this, with a double chance on the line, Sam, to go down by 30 against their arch rival Sturt on the eve of the finals. It's not great preparation, but it sort of sums up their year today. They've been so inconsistent. There's such a big gap between their best basketball and their worst basketball. The best basketball can match it with the best teams, but they've also been dishing up some basketball, which you could possibly lose to a South or a Centrals playing that type of ball. So, look, they were never in this one. Johnson too good. Big body. Eagles have struggled with big bodies all year. He had 22 points. Like you said, Isaac White, 23. Isaac's having a great year. He's a young guy. He's come in. He had a big game against Norwood a few weeks ago, up against a really strong backcourt. He's come up against another really strong backcourt. The Eagles is really with Doyle and Hautapine and Rios, and he's come up and he's outscored all those guys. But also great support across the board on the weekend. Jon Warbout, Turnbull, Lee, Burns, Rigoni, all these guys are coming in, playing some good minutes and chipping in. I guess what they had, the nucleus they had before Johnson came in was set up, and it probably wasn't a good enough team to win a championship, but it was set up perfectly that if you bring in a Johnson, then they had all the role players in place to support a Johnson to go into the finals. Now they've steamrolled home. They've come from well sixth to grab that third spot, which is huge in terms of the finals. They have double chance now. They're coming up against Norwood, who they knocked off not that long ago. But the Eagles, they'll be disappointed with that. But they're the type of team that can bounce back, and they've done it all year. They get done by 30, but they come out and have a good win the next week, and that's what they'll be hoping. Rios was down. He was 3 of 11 for only 7 points. Hautapine was quiet. Trent Folds only 9 points. Tyson Hoffman didn't trouble the scorers, so there's plenty of upside. It's just whether or not they can turn around in just a week, Sam.
Like you just said, Sturt are in pretty much tip-top shape right now heading into finals. And really, from a team that didn't seem like one that would win a championship earlier in the year, have really turned it on and look like they will. As we start to preview the men's final series that is coming up, this is what the ladder finished like. And Doug, for me, this is pretty much the ladder you would have dreamt of just writing about. This is exactly how you would have liked it to be set up. Southern at the top with the absolutely deserving, of course. Norwood in at second, they're playing Sturt. That's going to be one matchup you don't want to miss. And then Woodville up against Forestville, because to me, Woodville should be in that top 3 or would have liked to have been, but because they can't, they're at 4th and they're going to own home final there as well. So they're happy with that. And as looking at the road to the final, this is how it looks. Woodville will take on Forestville in an elimination final. The winner of that, of course, gets to go through to a semi. And they'll face the loser of the other game, Norwood and Sturt in the other qualifying game. And the winner of that one goes on to play the Southern Tigers. And that's going to be one matchup that we cannot wait for. But we'll get started just quickly on the elimination final game, because Woodville and Forestville at 7 p.m, of course, at St Clair. This is going to be huge. like we said, the Eagles, major ramifications, I guess, for losing that game because now they have to take on Woodville at Woodville, which is a very, very tough ask. They've had a strong finish to the year, the Eagles, 4-1. However, haven't beaten Woodville there, of course, this year, as we've mentioned now. The loser is clearly knocked out. It's an elimination game. And the winner plays, of course, the loser of Sturt and Norwood. This is going to be one game that could really decide the rest of the finals because there are two very good teams in there. But I think if Woodville get through, they'll challenge more teams, for my opinion, than Forestville might.
Yeah, look, that's a fair assessment. But this is going to be a cracker game. And the Eagles boys, they haven't won at St Clair, but they did knock off Woodville a few weeks ago by 3 or 4. And Darren Ing wasn't playing. Now, our word is Darren Ing's probably not going to play this game either. So that definitely makes it closer. And the Eagles will be rocking up thinking they can win this for sure. I hope Darren does play because Darren Ing up against Jake Rios would be a fantastic matchup. Two best shooters in the league. But going into it, there's some really good matchups here. First of all, who gets the job on Kirksey? Nelson Kirksey, possibly going to take out the Woolacott medal this year. And he's really hurt the Eagles this year so far. For mine, probably Brad Gerlach, the veteran, will probably get the start on him. He's two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's not getting a lot of output offensively, so he needs to show something defensively. And I reckon the Eagles will probably start him on Nelson, and he really needs to have an impact there. You can't let Nelson, with Darren Ing out, you can't let Nelson go for 30. You've got to try and limit him to under his season, season average. So if you can keep him to mid to high teens, then you're certainly in with a chance. On the opposite way, Woodville got Adam Dorr to worry about, and the only person I can really think to go on him is probably Nelson himself. I think Nelson Kirksey will probably go on Adam Doyle. He's got long reach, he's athletic enough, he's quick enough. So it'll be interesting to see what the coaches do there. But for mine, I mean, Woodville going here, if we can limit Adam Doyle's influence, then it'll go a long way for winning. So I'll be putting my best player on him, which is Nelson Kirksey. But we'll see how that plans out. The other really big matchup is Luke Stanbridge, the centre for Woodville. Now, Trent Files is probably going to get the matchup on him. I've talked about Woodville's big three all year. Darren Ing, Luke Stanbridge, Nelson Kirksey. If Darren Ing doesn't play, they're down to 2. So, if you do an okay job on Kirksey, and if you can make sure that Luke Stanbridge doesn't go for 20, if you can keep him around the 10, make him put the ball on the floor because he likes his mid-range jump shots. If Trent Files can close him out, make him put the ball on the floor, which he's not used to doing, and keep him off the boards, that will go a long way as well for Forestville getting this, Sam. So big game for Trent. He's going to be he's probably going to be giving up about 20 kilos, but he's about the same height. He's more athletic, so that can work both ways for the Eagles guys. But big game for Luke as well. He's won a championship. He's a finals. He's played well in finals before, so that is a key matchup. Files versus Stanbridge, if they do end up going that way. But then you look at the support casts. You look at Woodville. Mitchell Meldrum, Adam Miller, Daniel McKee. Alex Majorana, who is, if there was a Sixth Man of the Year, would be definitely up for that award, and Cody Schutz. And then you look at Forestville, Brad Hayden, Carl Howard-Tapine, Tyson Hoffman, Ollie Meegans, who will probably come in and have to play a role on Luke Stanbridge at some point off the bench. I don't know who I'd go for there because the support cast, as you know, Sam, can go a long way in terms of finals basketball, and you can't just rely on your stars. You need your support cast to come through. And looking at those two lists, I'd probably favour the Eagles a little bit. I think they've got a little bit more firepower there, a little bit more scoring, certainly off the bench. So I think, as much as the Eagles are underdogs, if Darren Ing doesn't play, if they can do an okay job on Kirksey, if Files can get the better of Luke Stanbridge and their role players come out and get it done over the Woodville role players, then there's no reason why Forestville can't come away with a win here. So I'm actually going to tip a little bit of an upset, Sammy, and I reckon Forestville are going to go through.
Last time they met, Forestville won by 3 points, so they've done something right before. They can do it again. So it's going to be a very, very exciting elimination final there at St Clair. Qualifying final, of course, Norwood and Sturt. This is huge. 7 p.m. Mars Stadium. Make sure you get along to that. Sturt in some stellar form at the moment. Last time they met was round 17 at Mars. Sturt came up winners 99-94. And of course, the winner of this one will play the 20-1 Southern Tigers. And just to put this into perspective, Norwood are the only team so far that have beaten the Tigers. So a win here for Norwood wouldn't be a bad thing because they know they can take on the Southern Tigers. But I guess for Sturt, it's going to be interesting. They're going to go, okay, we win this game, we play the Southern Tigers. Where do we go from there? So this is going to be a big game.
Yeah, it's a big game. The two grand finals from last year, and they have a history of playing each other in the grand finals and finals basketball in particular. Two fantastic clubs and some great matchups. The winner, I feel that this is probably not going to be the first time, the only time they play each other. I reckon they'll probably meet each other again, possibly in a prelim. But the winner of this one would certainly set up a home court prelim for that if they do go on to lose to the Tigers. But the matchups, you look at the front court matchup, Sam, Holmes and Lycett up against Johnson and Warbout. That's going to be great. What's interesting, it'll be interesting to see which way the coaches go. Because for mine, if I'm a Norwood coach, I want Holmes on Johnson. So I'd let probably Lycett guard Warbout. But if I'm Sturt, I'd probably switch that. I'd probably want Johnson on the more athletic Lycett. And I would leave Jon Warbout, who's a fantastic defender, to take on Holmes and keep him off the boards. So it'll be interesting which way the coaches go there. I think Norwood, as good as Johnson and Warbout are, I think Norwood slightly have the edge in the front court battle there. But that's going to be a cracker. Then you go to the backcourt, Sam. And last time these teams met, when Sturt got the win, Sturt's backcourt performed much better. Isaac White had a great game, Josiah Lee, Hamish Burns. These three guys got the better of Andrew Webber, Ben Howe and the Irishman O'Boyle off the bench. So the Norwood guys will remember that, and they'll be going in to rectify that. I reckon they'll be all over Isaac White. They won't be giving him, especially after his performance last week against the Eagles, they won't be giving him any space. So it'll be a really good test for the young fella, see how he comes up. First finals appearance. For a young guy up against the reigning champions. So that's going to be key, I think, because I think the front court could just nullify each other. The back court's going to be huge. What I think Sam Sturt has the edge in is their bench. They go real deep. I mean, they played 11 players against the Eagles on the weekend, and I know they won by 30, but they've often been going 9, 10, 11 deep. So Jack Turnbull, Tim Clayson, the captain, who's back and playing pretty good basketball. Owen Thomas, Jason Rigoni, Mark Bauer, the veteran, can come in and play a role in an Andrew Webber or in a ball that keeps shutting them down. Then you look over the Norwood team, they've got Daniel Webber, who's had a pretty good year, Matthew Long. There's not a lot of bench there, so they do rely on their starters a lot, which is okay, but it means if you have one or two guys down, you don't have that injection off the bench. You really do rely on your big name players. So for mine, Sturt, they have a better list all the way through. If that's going to be enough, I'm not sure. I'm going to tip Norwood only because the Sturt backcourt had the better of them last time, and I reckon the Norwood boys will know that, and they'll come out to rectify that. And on the back of Jacob Holmes and Lycett, I reckon they'll get this done, but it could really go either way, let's be honest.
Like you said with that Norwood group as well, the bench isn't deep, and I guess that's why the Tigers, whose bench is very deep, the Tigers have been getting the better of them the last couple of times. So I guess at this stage, if they were to face up again against the Tigers, Norwood to get the win, and in the semi-final you see Norwood and Southern, who would you pick?
Oh, you have to pick Tigers at this stage of the year. They've only lost one for the year, Sam, so until they lose, you have to go with them, I think. Whether they're playing Sturt or Norwood, you've got to go with the Tigers. They're in fantastic form, and so you'd have to go with them. But you'd certainly want to win this one, Sam, so you get two cracks at them. Yep. You know what I mean? So, and not only that, if you happen not to beat them the first time, you get that home prelim, which is it's probably worth 5 to 10 points. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's head on over to the women's stuff as well, because they've got their final series ready to go. Looking at the ladder quickly, of course, Norwood first with 18-3, so they have got themselves the lucky semi-final straight through to that, the ticket there. So after this is how great was this? The Southern Tigers were second place with one win ahead of all three teams, West, North and Forestville, all locked on 15-6 and all differed by about 7% total. That's pretty remarkable. You don't often see that. So I guess, for teams like Forestville and North who didn't get that double chance, purely based on percentage, they'll be spewing. But of course, the road to the final, this is how it looks now that the finals have been locked in. North taking on Forestville in the elimination final. Austral Sports is heading on to that game at Hillcrest, so that's going to be a cracker. The winner there obviously going on to take the loser of Southern and West, their qualifying final, and the winner of that game will play the Norwood Flames at Mars. So That's how it looks. Straight up, let's look at the North Adelaide and Forestville game. This is going to be huge because these two teams have been quite competitive all year. However, the Eagles women are yet to beat North Adelaide this season. Now, they have a bit of a daunting task playing against them at Hillcrest since they haven't beaten them this year. That's a bit scary and probably a bit stiff for Forestville as well to actually have to come up against North in an elimination final because, like you said before, North are probably the best fourth place team you've ever seen. So this is going to be quite exciting indeed. They've won 5 on the trot though. That's the only argument I've got so far for the Eagles. They're in some great form heading in. Meanwhile, North have hit a bit of a road bump and a little bit unsteady right now for mine. So who's your pick?
Oh, you'd have to go North, but there's a few reasons for that. Forestville are in good form. They have won their last 5, but they've had a really soft run home. Although they had a really good win against Sturt on the weekend, but they have had a soft run home. There's no doubt about that. And they haven't beaten anyone in the top, well, the other 4 teams that are in the top 5. They haven't beaten any of them for a while, ever since Morgan Yeager has left. So because of that, you have to go for North. But I mean, there's some really interesting matchups here. Obviously, Olivia Thompson will win the Halls medal this year, up against Jo Hill, the former Halls medal winner from 20-something years ago. That's going to be a great matchup. Olivia will perform well in this game. There's no doubt about that. But will it be enough? I mean, obviously, Jo Hill, she's going to have Opal Mayer and Sarah Ellsworthy to also rotate through on Olivia. So she'll have some help there, and there's a little bit more depth there for the North. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Another great matchup, Shannon Mackay up against Sam DiFrancesco. I think they're number 1 and 2 for 3 points made this year, Sam. So that's going to be a shootout. If one or the other can get rolling, that could go a huge difference. But the Eagles definitely need Sam to fire. They don't have enough firepower without her scoring, but she has been, like you said. I mean, they won their last 5, and I think she's averaged over 20 points through those 5 games. She's really stamped her authority as one of the best shooters in the league. But Shannon's up to the task. That's going to be a great duel. But then you look at once again the support cast, Sam. We spoke about North, their bench not stepping up, and they need to. Shannon Tarrant, Sophie Byrne, Kirsty Williams, and Courtney Hansen. These types of girls, they need to step up, and they're going to be up against Eagles, Hannah Lehman, Juliet Gordon, Amy Brett, and the veteran 200 gamer Alex Duncan. That little battle there amongst the support cast will go a long way to see who wins this one, because especially who can chip in and get a few points here and there. Because as we saw on the weekend, North only scored 50, and also you look at Forestville, young, exciting group, but with Olivia and Sam, if one of them don't fire, then they need some help. So it's going to be team basketball that wins this one, Sam. You have to go with North because it's at Hillcrest. But this young Forestville group, they come in, they've had a great season, they finished 5th, no one expects them to do anything, so they can just come in and play their exciting brand of basketball on the back of the best player in the league, and they'll be coming in thinking, why not us, why not beat them? So I'm going to tip North, but good luck to the Forestville girls, they're definitely in with a shot. Well,
like you said, the Eagles have been relying heavily on Olivia and Sam though for scoring, so if one of them don't score a lot, it could be the end of the game there. So, of course, that's going to be a great clash. Austral Sports will be down there, and you can catch all the highlights, of course, during the week. Losers, and they are out of the competition. So, very much a lot of riding on this game. And the winner will play the loser of this game coming up, the Southern Tigers and the West Adelaide Bearcats. Two of my favourite stories, I guess, for the year, because starting with, of course, the Southern Tigers. In 2015, they were 5-17 and in 9th place, and what a journey to get here. They are now 2nd and hosting a qualifying final in 2016. That is one of the great stories, and they've done a magnificent job recruiting and bringing the team together to play the quality basketball they have this year, and they've essentially switched that record from 5-17 to 16-5. So magnificent from them. This is 2nd and 3rd game, so this is going to be huge. These two are probably 2 of the most evenly matched sides for mine, I think, in this women's competition right now. West are yet to beat the Tigers, though. That is the main point. They certainly have risen to the occasion this year, but they are yet to beat Southern. Saturday night, massive occasion for these teams. And I guess for West and Southern, they've both got I mean, not a lot of expectation on them to go all the way, but they both know they can. They certainly are capable of it.
They're both definitely capable of it. They both knocked off Norwood this year, so big game because they'll both be thinking if they can get this one, then they'll have a crack at Norwood and hopefully go straight through the grand final. So that's definitely in the back of their minds, but they both know how tough this one's going to be. Southern's had a great year. I mean, you documented it well, Sam, from cellar dwellers last year to doing some good recruiting, coming through, having a bit of a shaky start, but which was always going to be the case when you have a new group. But they've finally gelled and they've had a great back half of the year, and certainly probably the second informed team coming into the finals. But they're up against probably the informed team, Sam, in Westies, who were 6th, actually I think they were 7th earlier on in the year, and they have their back half of the year has been just amazing, really. No one would have picked it. And so great matchup. I like some of the matchups in the game itself, Sam. The front court matchup, Tara Robinson and Molly McKendrick up against Ashley Vordermay and Trudy Holland. I mean, that's going to be great. I mean, Ashley and Trudy are, they're seasoned veterans. They've been in the league for a long time, and they are very good defenders. So Tara and Molly are going to have their work cut out for them, absolutely. Then you have the import matchup. Tiona Campbell for Westies up against Taraya Cunningham, both in great form. I mean, Campbell for Westies, she came in late and she had a slow start. Her first 5 or 6 weeks, she took to find her feet. But when she turned her form around, Westies turned their form around. There's no doubt about that positive correlation there. On the back of her great play, Westies have turned their season around. So Cunningham's going to have her hands full there. They're both great playmakers. So huge matchup, and that's going to be worth going to see this game, just to see those two go at it. But then you look at the support cast, and I mean, Danielle Fawcett for Southern's having a great year as well. She's been big on the boards lately, so she's going to be a tough matchup for Westies. But then it sort of drops off a little bit. Lauren Fisher, who's a solid player. Gemma Thacker is obviously, like we said before, has come in and she really gives some good punch off the bench. But it drops away there. They're not as deep as Westies, Sam. So, a bit like the Norwood Sturt sort of scenario in the men's, whilst I think they have more firepower up front, it drops away. So they're really relying on their front six. Whereas Westies, they have a little bit more coming off the bench. I mean, Talia Fijo, who's starting, and Michaela Lappin also starting, who have had a really great couple of months. But off the bench, they have Sky Langenbrink, Amy Porter, and Jasmine Fijo as well, who are all playing exceptionally basketball. I think they're all in double figures on the weekend, albeit against Centrals. But it gives them that little bit extra flexibility if they have a couple of players not playing that well. So if they have a couple of their starters a little bit off on the night, you can inject these players in off the bench and give them something. Whereas I don't think Southern quite have that. I'm going to tip Southern purely because it's at Southern, but and they just kept north of 50 points at Hillcrest. So you've got to tip an informed Southern, but Westies is going to push them right to the wire, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come away with a win. And the winner of this game, for mine, I think is going to win the whole thing, Sam. So I think the winner of this will go on and beat Norwood and go straight in the grand final. So, big game.
Huge. Well, they could well meet together in the grand final if all things go to plan. Of course, the winner of this game plays Norwood next week, and like you said, they've both beaten them. So just that team, Norwood, no one thought would ever be beaten this year. Once again, have gone from possible champions, or basically guaranteed champions, to no longer certainty. So this is going to be one awesome competition, of course. Both the men and women just set up absolutely brilliantly. There's 4 games for you to choose from, Dougie. We've just gone through them all. You need to pick one to go to, because I have to go to one. You need to go to one. Which one are you going to?
I reckon the Southern West girls game. I think that's going to be an absolute cracker. Both couldn't be in better form if they tried. So that for me is going to be a huge game, and that's probably where I'll be going.
The Morphett Vale Stadium is where that location is for that game. So make sure you get on to all those games, of course. There's Hillcrest, St Clair, Mars, and of course Morphett Vale. So those are the 4 grounds, or courts I should say, that you can get out to and catch some of this finals action. This is going to be huge. 4 games on at once. There'll be 2 the week after that, 2 the week after that, and then the big grand final at Titanium Security Arena. So a huge month ahead. Dougie, I can't wait to get stuck into it. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I can't wait to see some finals basketball. It couldn't be tighter on both men's and women's, Sam. So we're lucky. Everyone get out to a game, support the league, and enjoy the finals.
Magnificent stuff. Well, thank you, Doug, of course. Thank you for all watching at home. This is going to be massive. So make sure you're staying locked into all our coverage because we couldn't bring you enough of it. We're very excited. So we'll see you next week with more Premier League overtime, all the results, and more on the final series coming up.